Guests laughed at their wedding, until the groom took the mic and said this. Before we start this story, kindly take a moment and tell us where in the world you're watching from. We really love hearing from every one of you. And if you enjoy stories like this, share and subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories. Thank you. It was a bright Saturday morning in Manchester, England. The air was crisp, the sky clear, and the church bell rang with a soft chime that echoed across the neighborhood. People walked briskly toward the old stone church, their coats swaying in the morning breeze. Inside, the pews filled quickly. Some whispered in excitement, others chuckled quietly. Everyone had come to witness what many already called the strangest wedding of the year. The bride was Mary Adams, a 31-year-old nanny who worked in wealthy homes across the city. She was known for her kindness and the way children clung to her whenever she was around. But Mary was not like the brides people were used to seeing. She had no expensive gown, no makeup artist, and no bridesmaids in glittering dresses. Instead, she walked into the church wearing the very same navy blue nanny uniform she wore to work each day. It was pressed neatly, but it was still just a uniform. She couldn't afford anything else. The guests whispered louder now. Some shook their heads in pity, others laughed behind their hands. "Imagine wearing that to your own wedding," one woman muttered. "This is what poverty looks like," another added. Mary tried to ignore them. She held her head high, though her heart felt heavy. She was used to being looked down on. She came from a small town in Georgia, USA, and had moved to England years earlier to earn money for her struggling family back home. Life had not been easy, but she never let hardship steal her smile. And today she was smiling for one reason: the man waiting at the altar. His name was David Miller, tall, broad-shouldered, with a rough beard that looked untrimmed. He wore a suit so old it sagged at the elbows. The shoes on his feet had cracks along the sides, and his tie was faded almost to gray. To the watching crowd, David looked like a homeless man dragged in from the street. People snickered. "This is the man she's marrying? He looks like he sleeps in a bus station. What future can this poor girl possibly have with him?" On the left row, Mary's three closest friends sat together. Helen, a nurse, Sophie, a banker, and Carla, a teacher. Their whispers were loud enough for others to hear. "I told her not to marry him," Helen sighed. "Just look at him. She deserves so much better." Sophie scoffed. "Mary has worked all her life, and this is her reward? A man who can't even buy her a proper ring." Carla smirked. "This marriage won't last 6 months. Just wait and see." Mary heard them. She heard every word. But her eyes never left David's, because what she saw in him was not the ragged suit or the cracked shoes. She saw the man who had changed her life. She had met him months earlier on a rainy night in Piccadilly Gardens. He had been sitting on a bench with only a blanket draped over his shoulders. People rushed past him with umbrellas, pretending not to notice. But Mary had stopped. She offered him food, and when he looked up at her with tired eyes, she sat beside him. That night they talked for hours. From that moment, she returned often. After work, she would bring him warm meals. They would sit and share stories. She learned of his patience, his kindness, his gentle spirit. Slowly, she stopped seeing a man in ragged clothes and started seeing someone whose heart was richer than gold. That was why she was here. That was why she was marrying him. Despite the whispers, despite the laughter, despite the shame, the ceremony began. Reverend John Peters, the pastor, raised his hand. His voice filled the hall. "If anyone has reason why these two should not be joined together, speak now or forever hold your peace." The room grew silent, but the silence was not kind. It was heavy, filled with muffled laughs and judgmental stares. Mary felt them like sharp stones thrown at her heart, but she squeezed David's hand tighter. When it was time for vows, her voice trembled at first, then grew steady. "David," she said softly, "I don't care about what people see on the outside. I care about the way you treat me, the way you listen, the way you make me feel safe. I love you for who you are, not for what you have." Some guests rolled their eyes. Others chuckled. Then David spoke. His voice was deep but calm. Mary, you saw me when no one else would. You gave me food when I was hungry. You gave me kindness when the world gave me nothing. You are my blessing, and I promise to love you with all that I am, for the rest of my days. Laughter burst out across the church. People shook their heads. Even the groomsman, asked last minute to serve as a witness, smirked in disbelief. Helen whispered loudly, "For the rest of his days? He doesn't even have a house to live in." The crowd giggled. But then David lifted his hand toward the pastor. "Please, may I speak before we finish?" The pastor hesitated, then nodded. David stepped slowly to the microphone. His old shoes squeaked against the floor. His wrinkled suit clung awkwardly to his frame. All eyes followed him, expecting another embarrassment. He looked at the crowd, his face calm. "I know what you're all thinking," he began. "You laugh at my clothes, my shoes, the way I look. You believe Mary has made the worst mistake of her life. You pity her. You think she deserves better. Isn't that right?" The church fell silent. No one answered, but the guilty look said it all. "But here is the truth," David continued, his voice steady. "I am not the man you think I am. My name is David Miller. I am the owner of Miller Properties in London. I am not poor. I am not homeless. I chose this life, these clothes, because I needed to know if love still exists in this world without money. I needed to know if someone could see me, not my wealth. And Mary did. She saw me when no one else would even look my way. She fed me, sat with me, loved me without asking for anything. She is the reason I stand here today. So if you came to laugh, know this: the joke is not on us. It is on those who judge what they do not understand." The room gasped. Some guests froze. Others covered their mouths in shock. Helen's eyes widened. Sophie's jaw dropped. Carla turned pale. Their mocking whispers turned to silence. Mary, however, felt her chest tighten. Her eyes filled with tears, not just of joy, but of confusion and hurt. She whispered under her breath, "Why didn't you tell me?" When the ceremony ended and guests crowded around with sudden respect, Mary pulled David aside. Her voice shook. "Why didn't you tell me before? Do you know how humiliated I felt? You let me stand here in front of everyone, mocked and laughed at, when you had the power to change it." David held her hand tightly. "Mary, please. I needed to know. All my life, women have chased me for my money. I lost myself in fake love, shallow promises, empty relationships. I had to be sure. And then I found you. You were different. You were real. I had to test it." Mary turned away, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Love is not a test, David. You should have trusted me from the beginning." And with that, she walked out of the church, leaving David standing in his expensive truth. The days after were heavy. Mary stayed in her small flat, ignoring his calls. She loved him, but she also felt betrayed. Every time she remembered the laughter in the church, she broke down. People had stopped mocking her only when they discovered David was wealthy. It shattered her heart. 2 weeks later, there was a knock on her door. She opened it and found David standing there. But this time, he was dressed in a fine tailored suit, his beard neatly trimmed, his shoes polished. In his hands were flowers. In his eyes was a plea. "Mary," he said quietly, "I know I hurt you. I should have trusted you. But please believe me, I did everything out of fear. Fear of being used again. You showed me a love I never thought I'd find. Please, forgive me." Tears rolled down Mary's cheeks. She whispered, "I never cared about your money, David. I married you because I loved you as you were. That was enough." David placed the flowers in her hands. "Then let me make it right. Not with money, but with honor. Let me give you the wedding you deserve. Not because you need it, but because you are worth it." Weeks later, Manchester witnessed a wedding like no other. The same church was now decorated with roses and white ribbons. Chandeliers sparkled overhead. Guests entered, stunned by the beauty. This time there was no laughter, only awe. Mary walked down the aisle in a flowing white gown, radiant as ever. David stood waiting, not in rags but in a fine suit, his eyes fixed only on her. Helen, Sophie, and Carla sat silently in the front row, humbled by shame. No whispers escaped their lips. When the vows were spoken again, the church was quiet, silent with respect. And when the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, David turned to the guests. This day is not just about us. It is a lesson. Do not judge by appearances. Do not laugh at what you do not understand. True love is not built on money or status. It is built on loyalty, kindness, and sacrifice. That is what lasts. The crowd erupted in applause. Some cried. Mary, too, smiled through her tears, finally at peace. What began with laughter ended with admiration. What began with judgment ended with respect. Mary, the nanny mocked for marrying a poor man, became the woman who taught the world that love is never about wealth. It is about the heart. And in the quiet of their new home, far from the whispers of the world, Mary and David held hands, grateful for the love that had found them. A love money could never buy. What do you think of Mary and David's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart.